Okay, so the factoring method works most of the time. Most of the time the factoring method works. There are times when your factoring won't work, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, it might be prime and you may not be able to factor it, or two, maybe you just don't know what the factors are. Maybe you're not that confident in your factoring. Maybe you forgot how to slide and divide. Maybe you aren't sure if there's a GCF and you should pull a GCF out. So if you're on that side of the fence and you're uncertain, not confident in your factoring skills, but you are confident in your order of operations, then you can use the quadratic formula. Now, factoring works sometimes, but this always works. Now, there is a unique situation where it may not be, you might see an error in your calculator, and that's where you and I will part ways, and you'll figure what that means in Algebra 2. But for all intents and purposes, for you and I, this will always give you an answer. So this always works. Now, it is a little scary looking, but it's not difficult. You're intelligent, and as long as you take your time and take all the space you need, this should be pretty basic. So this is the formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. So these letters are simply the letters from your equation, the ax squared plus bx plus c. To start this problem with the quadratic formula, it certainly helps to make a list of numbers. So a is going to be the number in front of x squared. Now, there is a number in front of x squared. I know you don't see it because we don't need to write it, but I'm going to write it here. The number in front of x squared is 1. So a equals 1. The number in front of the x, not the x squared, but the x, is letter b. And you're going to include the sign here. So letter b, or b, will be equal to negative 7. B is where you might get caught up in some trouble, because it is negative, and when it's negative sometimes people make silly mistakes, but I'll show you how to avoid those mistakes. C is going to be the last number, the one that doesn't have any variable at all, but remember to include the sign, so it's going to be negative 18. Now, before we begin, we already know that the answers should be 9 and negative 2. So if we don't get those numbers, we're in trouble. But we already know what they're supposed to be, so that's kind of a good way for us to see if we're right. So let's get right to it. This is going to be a process, but as long as you take your time, you'll soon learn to love this, because I do. So let's go. X will stay x, and we are simply going to substitute everything in. Now this negative sign, right, is negative b, which means take whatever we have for b and switch the sign. That's what that negative means. So if b is negative 7, but this is the opposite of that, or the negative of that, then this will be positive 7. It basically switches the signs. We still have this plus or minus, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then we have the square root of b squared. Now this is important. Because this has an exponent, and because I'm going to substitute negative 7 in here, you will need parentheses. And you should throw the exponent outside those parentheses. That is absolutely critical for you to get this problem right. That is where you will make the mistake. Don't make that mistake. When you are substituting in for b squared, always use parentheses and always put the exponent, the square, the 2, the exponent of 2, put that outside those parentheses. Doing any other way, writing it any other way, will most likely lead to a wrong answer. So that is the critical part right there. Minus 4 times a, use parentheses, times c, use parentheses, negative 18, all over 2 times a, which is 1. Now here's what you're going to do. What this really means here is that you are going to do this equation twice. That's what this means. So I'm going to do it the first time with the plus, right? So this is my first attempt. Now, I normally don't write first attempt, but I just want to point out that this is happening twice. This is with the plus, okay? I'm just going to rewrite this whole equation out. X equals 7 plus the square root of all that stuff. Minus 4 times 1 times negative 18 over 2 times 1. And then I'm going to, now here's the thing. You can do all of these steps right now and do order of operations. And I'm going to do it right now, but then I want to show you what you can do in the calculator. But I'm going to do this piece by piece. This is 7 plus, and if you type this in your calculator exactly how you see it, which I will, my batteries are low. That's not good. I'm going to type the inside. Now I'm not going to type the square root. I'm just simply going to type the negative 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 18. Let me put those parentheses there. Okay, let's do it. And you type it exactly how you see it. So negative 7 squared minus parentheses. Actually, you don't need parentheses. Minus 4 parentheses. 1, close parentheses, new parentheses, negative 18, close parentheses. Okay, this looks exactly like this without the square root. Just hit enter. Okay, so it's 121. So the inside of that radical symbol is really just 121 over 2. Now we're going to do the order of operations here. This is really just 7 plus the square root of 121, which is 11, over 2. And if we do our math here, this is 18 over 2. 18 over 2, 18 divided by 2 is 9. So 9. Now let's check this out. You already know that 9 works. There you go. There's your first answer. Like I said, this was going to work out exactly the same. We're going to do this again. And this is where you should ask me for more scrap paper so that you can get it right. I'm going to just separate this so we don't get lost. You have to do it again. Your second attempt will have a minus sign. Remember? So we're going to rewrite the same problem with a subtraction sign. And I don't need to write all this stuff out again. We already know that it's 121, so I'm just going to put 121 over 2. And we already know that the square root of 121 is 11, so this is 7 minus 11 over 2. And if we do the math, this is negative 4 over 2. And this is really negative 2. And if you look, this is actually perfect because these are the same answers that we got here. So our solution is the same. It's negative 2, 9. Always works. Promise you that.